Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Mac, and with me, alongside me today, is one of the biggest Manchester United fans in the history of the world. And if I recall correctly, you are a Czech silver stripes type of man. My boy Gio, what's good, boy?
Let's go. What's going on, guys?
Unfortunately, we do not have Ray with us because he actually has Bell Internet, which is kind of weird. I don't know why. Unless Bell, you're sponsoring us, then we can talk about that. However, on today's podcast, we'll be reviewing the action from Matchday 19 of the Premier League. But before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, as we are both on Spotify and YouTube. Lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want to be able to make sure you can get involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. But let's go straight into it, Gio. We're going to be able to start off with, I guess, what was billed to be maybe the second highlight game of the weekend, maybe the first big game of the weekend. The week that just took place was Arsenal 0, Newcastle 0. But jump right in. Give us your overall thoughts on this game, Gio.
Although it ended 0-0, oddly entertaining. Both teams were kind of going back and forth at each other, pressing every time they really got the chance to. And, although there wasn't a goal, that's what you kind of want to see. You kind of want to see teams go after it. You want to see the top four teams kind of challenge one another and not just expect Arsenal to kind of do Arsenal things and kind of win the game. Newcastle were getting after it, and I love to see it. They were putting a lot of pressure, and Arsenal didn't back down from that pressure either. They were going after it. They had great balls into the box. Gab almost scored off a header. It was very close. Callum Wilson was great energy up top for Newcastle. I thought it was a very entertaining game. I think 0-0 was a fair result. Both teams left with points. And honestly, I enjoyed the match.
Overall, I could not agree more. It definitely was an enjoyable match from kind of a neutral perspective. It had a lot of what you're expecting, right? Arsenal were very, very good on possession. They won the ball up in the final third quite a few times. Newcastle were trying to exploit their opportunities on the counterattack. However, Arsenal did well defensively on players like Almiron, who was very invisible through large portions of the game. So, as well as on the other side, Newcastle knew kind of what Arsenal were trying to do in the final third. And depending on your perspective, you could say Newcastle did a phenomenal job defending them, or Arsenal weren't as creative or as kind of clinical as they need to be in the final third, or as clean with their final pass to create opportunities. Because both the game ended up being expected goals, where Arsenal just edged out 1.1 versus 1. So there really wasn't much in between the two teams, as you highlighted, Gio. But I want to go straight into it, Gio. I am completely biased here, as you very well know. Are you going to go with pen? We're going to play a game of pen or no pen, Gio. And the game is, of course, for the drag down on it was on Gabriel, your favorite Arsenal player, was dragged down inside the box. I don't know if I was getting the hangover from watching the World Cup, but I just immediately assumed that's a pen. Let's go. Maybe I'm just a little bit lost here, but what was your first take when you saw that back?
Honestly, really shocked it wasn't called a pen. At least if you called it a pen and then decided against it, then okay, fair shout. But the fact that it wasn't even considered, tough. But it may eventually come back and haunt them. It could, if that was a pen. Because right now, it's down to 5 points, and then obviously with 2 games left to play each other between Man City and Arsenal, that's a 6-point swing. So, hey, at this point, I know in the previous podcast we talked about how Arsenal have to be considered the favorites, but dropping points, and again, 7 points isn't a lot, especially given Man City's quality. So yeah, no, I thought it was a pen. But hey, that's just me, and yeah, it can very well play a huge factor down the line in the season.
Absolutely. Small decisions like this, they always add up when hindsight being 2020, when certain teams look back at, if we just made this mistake didn't happen, or this call went our way, our whole season could have changed, right? Or for example, my favorite one I like to bring up from last year, it was the Arsenal versus Man City, when at that point, I think they were up 1-0 Martinelli misses a tap in. Gabriel gets a red card 3 seconds later, and Man City go on to win that game, which looking back wins them the title and knocks Arsenal out of Champions League. So it's funny things like small moments like this that can have an impact. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, it's why we love football, that you have this type of controversy week in, week out. There's always something to talk about. But I guess what I want to be able to kind of ask for you, do you think Newcastle were going into this game just hoping for a point? Because from when I'm watching that game, they seem very defensive. They were a lot of time wasting even early on in the second half, it felt like, at least from my perspective. Do you think they were comfortable and happy with that 1 point and willing to walk away from it? Or do you think that maybe they should have had a little bit more kind of ambition to go out and try to get a win?
Look, I think they were definitely more than happy with a draw. Like Eddie Howe kind of said, they were playing against the top tier team, and they were. So the fact of the matter is, although if they can squeeze points out of these bigger clubs and still play very well as they have in the last 10 or so games, and take 3 points away from the lower tier sides, then absolutely that's exactly what they want. So they can still manage to stay in the top four. So they're not really worried about, say, it's a must win, or it's important. It's definitely important to them for them to try and win against these bigger clubs. But again, I think right now it's let's make it to European football again. So if they can squeeze a win out of a top four squad, I think Eddie Howe and the rest of the guys are quite happy.
I would definitely agree. I think if they started off the game looking like they were trying to come out Arsenal for certain sections, but very, very early on in the second half, they completely settled in. You know what? It seemed like coming out of halftime, Eddie Howe was like, you know what, boys, we weren't able to get them early on. Maybe they were looking for a quick strike, but we're just going to sit, try to absorb pressure, and see if we can kind of make sure Arsenal, of course, don't score on us, and we'll walk away with at least a point. And from my perspective, a lot of time, in the final third, this was probably like Odegaard's and Saka's, Martinelli's combined their worst games that they had thus far this season, all happening at once, really, because the one-on-one, they weren't as creative as they wanted to be. And even when there are certain moments when, for example, Saka, he kind of dusted, what's his name again? Dan Burn. He dropped Dan Burn, and he easily could have just kind of looked at that point, making a cross into the box for a free man, but instead tries to take up a couple extra 2 touches. Then Joe Linton comes back and tackles. And that's midway through the second half. So moments like that, when you're making key decisions, it seemed like, unfortunately, the dominoes couldn't fall on Arsenal's way in that manner. I guess on Arsenal's perspective, though, for you, Gio, do you think this ramps up any pressure for them in the transfer window, considering now, do they kind of feel, it's like that feeling of you're running down the street and someone's kind of like, you feel like someone's touching the back of your neck and you're getting chased down?
Or like you're running up the stairs and you feel like someone's going to grab your ankle.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not, for me, I'll be honest with you, Gio, a little bit insight to me. I don't know if you know, but I'm completely scared of sharks. So when I'm ever in water and I dive in water, I feel like there's a shark like right behind me, so I'm swimming very fast to get out of the way, because I'm not about it. I'm not about it. Either way, and the worst part is it's like in like community pools too. It's in the back of my head because I'm a dumbass. But moving past that, do you think this amps up on any pressure for Arsenal to, you know what, maybe we do need to bring in more attacking? Does this kind of increase the efforts to bring in Mudryk or Joao Felix or the other players that we talked about?
Again, I don't think they should overspend. Obviously, it's they're in a very favorable position from as close as last season, right? Just being so close to to even be considered in the talks of winning the Prem again so quick after being missing Champions League and things of that nature. I think people may be a little too eager, but I think for the greater good long term, you can't panic buy. That's not something that they should do. Again, in terms of Mudryk, I think they can definitely get him. Whether it's now, they're going to have to spend a little bit more money. I think Mudryk is going to be an Arsenal player by summertime, so I don't think they should really rush into it. If you're an Arsenal fan, I think you trust Arteta with what he has, as he's been doing it quite some time now. And I think up until this point, look, you get a draw here
like, yes, obviously you drop a couple of points, but the fact of the matter is they've been so consistent throughout the season that they will make up these points against, lower tier sides, and will regain sort of a more comfortable lead. But I think they're just more focused on, when that time comes when they have to play Man City. I think they're going to hope that they have more guys fit and ready to go. So I think they should just hold off on the purchasing.
No, I could see where you're coming from there, is where you don't want to be too crazy when you don't have to be. And definitely in terms like Mudryk is going to potentially be across the line, like considering if you just follow him on Instagram, you know exactly what he wants. But there's been, as it's been delaying and delaying, there's another team, and now we're going to move over to them, that has been hot on the heels of, you know what, hey, if you're not going to close the deal, we'll close the deal, because they're playing basically what Barcelona did to them. So that's Chelsea, of course, which just yesterday at the time of recording had lost 1-0 to Man City. Overall, I think a lot of this game played out that we expected, except for maybe it's not as much of a goal fest as we could have gotten potentially. But open up. What are your thoughts for this game that happened just the other day?
Again, wasn't a bad game. I think from a Chelsea standpoint, I think fans would be a little frustrated just because on the counter they had opportunities. They had plenty of opportunities, even down to the final 10 minutes when I think it was Lewis Hall got the ball out wide and just shot. Well, hey, it was a rainy day and he shot it over the bar, but it was a fair chance. I think anybody in that position who trusts their left foot as well as much as he does would have taken that shot regardless. It can be argued that he could have maybe crossed it, driven it low and hard, but I think that was a fair shout. That was a fair chance. You kind of have to take those opportunities whenever you get them because you're not going to get much off Man City. So, hey, tough game. But again, it's lacking in the midfield. I think they just need a maestro in the midfield. They've lost that sort of kick or that jolt from Mason Mount, as Ziyech actually got to start over Mount the other day. So yeah, I think they're missing that spark in the midfield to sort of delegate and to sort of put those nice through balls in. They're very much so feeling it now.
I can see where you're coming from. One, I'm going to flat out disagree with you. I'm a little bit too much of an expected goal hard-on nerd for the Hall chance. As expected goals of 0.04. Bro, you're missing that. Come on. But he saw his name in the headlines the following day, and you gotta respect. You gotta at least, you know what, kid? I see what you're trying to do there. Because if he scores that goal, he may have a starting job next week, right? So who knows? But I guess I want to flip it over because I do want to talk about Chelsea a little bit later on. But I don't know. In terms of the beginning of this game, if you saw Manchester City's formation, it seemed a lot of Pep doing Pep because traditionally, of course, they play like a 4-3-3 in possession. They play like kind of a 2-3-5 in a lot of ways. However, they started in a very weird formation, and it got me very nervous if you're a Man City fan as a 3-2-2-3. So they play with 3 center backs, really, 2 defensive mids, 2 attacking mids, 2 wingers, and a striker. So it seemed like they're packing the middle with 4 players, going very crazy, and it's something that they have not have played before. I guess, Gio, do you think that, considering that it was scrapped at halftime with a couple subs on with Rico Lewis and Manuel Akanji coming on at halftime, do you think, I don't know, was Pep being too much Pep there? Was he feeling himself a little bit too much or overthinking his opponent because maybe he doesn't know that Graham Potter's the manager now and he was a little bit nervous? Like, what are your thoughts for that initial formation from City?
It's funny because, he absolutely did pull a Graham Potter as if he didn't know who his best 11 was. Just put out your best 11, brother. Like, you're doing far too much. I get it. You want to flex your luxuries. That oil money is nice. But please, just cut the lead. There's a 7-point lead. You need to cut that. Stop messing about. Let's focus on the bigger picture here, and that's winning the Prem again. So, again, it was. If I'm a Chelsea fan, I kind of almost take that as disrespect. That like you want to try that against Chelsea. Chelsea are still, they have names. They can squeeze out wins, But yeah, to try that is an ultimate shot at Chelsea. I think Chelsea would be very offended
Oh, yeah.
if it were
Straight
up to
Michael
me.
Jordan meme. Straight Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
And I took that
yeah.
personally.
No, and I took that exactly. But yeah, no, Pep was definitely in his feelings. This guy was trying new things, not the time and place, but it's Pep. You kind of almost give him that benefit of the doubt, and at the end, they have the luxury to bring Riyad Mahrez on and Jack Grealish on, who ended up linking up to score the game winning goal.
Absolutely. I do want to just speak. I want to go. I'm going to call it my Stones corner because I don't know about you, but for me, this game, it was clearly the man of the match was John Stones. And this season has probably been his best season since he's really come on to City. He's faced a lot of criticism. He's played well for England. But thus far this season, just to be able to give him a shout out individually, even in this game, he was phenomenal. He initially started out as the center of the back three. Then, of course, when Akanji comes on, he plays more on that traditional back four between one of the center backs. But thus far this season, he has 94.4 pass completion, which is the second highest in the last 5 years for him. He's played in 12 matches so far this season. His highest total midway point since his first season with City. Because he's always been in and out of rotation for them, where they've had two better center backs, and he's been the third one. Now he's stapled himself as one of probably the first center back on the team sheet. He already has more tackles combined with interceptions right now than he did in the entirety of last season, as well as the highest amount of touches in the final third he's had in City since he's come on, and it's only halfway through the season. So he's kind of an all-action man for them everywhere. Very, very strong at the back, great in possession, ideally what Pep wants from a center half. It just seemed like maybe the initial formation wasn't working the best for him, but that changed. They still played very, very well. I know that, so after my Stones Corner, you kind of already touched on it in terms of that goal. Do you think Kepa's controller died, or what's going on here? Because just to paint the picture, Grealish has it all on the left wing. He takes it into the box, kind of crosses it softly. If you're playing FIFA, as an example, he didn't hold down the triple square. It wasn't a hard-driven cross. He just held down the X button very hard, And Mahrez came in for a tap-in and beat, it was Cucurella on the left-hand side, if I remember correctly, for a simple tap-in. But do you blame Kepa, or what's your thoughts?
That has to be Kepa's ball, man. You've played so well up until then, but why? Like, I think he just pressed the wrong button, He thought he pressed the one button, but it was actually the other, and he kind of froze. He maybe he thought, someone was going to clear it for him, or he thought no one was there, sort of kind of let it go and get another goal kick out of it. But you have to be sure at those games, and it being 0-0 so late in the game, you have to be aggressive on the ball and demand the ball yourself as a keeper at that point. As he spun away from the ball, so shocking, as well as he's played, this season. That's definitely on Kepa and nobody else.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be part of his highlight reel of mistakes that a lot of Chelsea fans do not like seeing, and gets to be added to any of those YouTube videos that are already out there. And I think he was trying to do the goalkeeper version of the Anthony Beyblade. That was the first thing that came to my mind, to be honest. But before we wrap up, I just want to kind of take a step back, because Chelsea, they've probably been the most disappointing team thus far this year. Graham Potter, since he's come on, it hasn't looked great. They haven't beat a team in the top half of the table all season. So it's not been a great season in totality for them, as well as this continues to go further and further on, more likely they're going to drop out of they're definitely not going to catch up and be in a European position for this year.
Yeah.
Would you be at all worried about Graham Potter's job security, or are you, I guess, kind of disappointed with his performance thus far as manager? Yes, they've had some injuries, but I guess if you were to give his, let's say, 6-month report card, or however many months, not it hasn't been 6 months, like 4-month report card as a manager, well, what would you give him?
I would give him I would give him almost a C plus or a C minus. C minus. I give him a C minus. Look, if the board didn't trust him or didn't see the project as a long-term project, why go out and sign Benoit from Monaco?
So these January signings, if I see January signings, I think yeah, they're going to stick with this guy, and I think they should stick with Graham Potter. He hasn't had a full season under his belt. He hasn't had a full transfer window under his belt. Um, Obviously taking over somebody's squad. There's a lot of quote unquote, for lack of a better term, dead weight that you may not find useful for your club or useful for the team you're trying to put out on a week to week basis. So yeah, no, I think it's too early. So I'll give him a C minus. I think he deserves some time. And yeah, just with the success he's brought Brighton over the past few years, you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt with EPL success and EPL experience. So yeah, no, I think ride out with Graham Potter. Just give him some time.
No, I definitely agree with that in terms of you want to be able to give him time. I think though, I'm getting to the point where if it's after the transfer window, he's brought in some of his signings and things haven't changed. I think at that point I would start to feel a little bit more disappointed because I want to compare and contrast to your favorite team, Gio, Manchester United, and the job Eric Ten Hag has done within a similar time frame. Yes, Ten Hag had a full transfer window, had a preseason to get his boys on the same page. Didn't start out great, but at least you saw a foundation of something. Right now, I see a foundation of nothing for Chelsea. I don't know what their identity is. I don't know how they're trying to play in possession. I don't know how they're trying to play out of possession. There is nothing I've gained from what tactically, big picture wise, what Graham Potter's team wants to accomplish. Whereas, of course, to contrast that to Ten Hag, I see progression from some key players and key positions as well. Again, the benefit is he has the couple extra months as well as the transfer window, which is a big deal, of course. But for me, if let's say we're in the same position in April as we are right now with Chelsea, I would start to get nervous because if I'm evaluating a manager and what their abilities are, no matter the players that are not maybe playing his system, he can do better than what he's doing with the names on a team sheet. A lot of managers can do because there is quality on this team. It's just that he's not. It hasn't gone right so far. So I'm again. I agree with you. I would give it an incomplete. We'll see, but it is definitely very concerning for me. But I guess this kind of wraps up the first part of our podcast. What we're going to do is take a quick break and come back and review a couple of the other games from the Premier League Matchday 19. So please stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, and we're continuing our Premier League coverage from this past midweek games. Continuing actually with Gio, your favorite team. I can see and feel the smile across your face when we begin talking about Manchester United 3-0 win against Bournemouth.
Love to see it.
Sure, depending the other side of the screen, not so much. I'll be honest. But overall, a phenomenal performance by Manchester United, getting on the score sheet. Casemiro, Rashford, if I recall correctly, and Shaw, right? Those are the 3 goal scorers for Manchester United.
Yep.
But overall, how happy are you, Gio?
I'm quite happy. I'm especially happy that they took advantage of the game in hand with the Spurs loss to really sort of create a little bit of separation. So yeah, that's definitely important, especially with also Newcastle, dropping points and having that game in hand against Newcastle now is also very important. So obviously third can be that aspiration. So yeah, no, I'm very happy. Everybody's sort of putting in great effort. Everybody has almost a new belief in one another, especially with the recent the last couple of games where we've seen Aaron Wan-Bissaka play at like a much higher level than he has been. Luke Shaw scoring goals, shocking, but you love to see it when it does happen. Great run to finish with his right foot is quite nice, as we know he's very dependent on that left foot. Yeah, no, all in all, just a great performance, and it makes me extra happy just because in past seasons you kind of see Manchester United get opportunities and them squandering them. So to see this happen just shows that Ten Hag really has the boys believing in a system, believing in his leadership, in his decision making. And yeah, no, everybody came out to play, and it was great.
Definitely, a lot of positives you can draw from this Manchester United performance if you're a fan of the club. I say from a Bournemouth perspective, though, it's a little disappointing where your team traditionally is very good on set pieces to concede the first goal from there. Casemiro, who's done a whole lot for the club, been a great shield for the team, is also coming away with some goals as well. So he stepped in and has done very, very well for the team. But from a Bournemouth perspective, that's disappointing. And I do agree, and I love the way you put it. It was shocking. Shocking? I don't know why. I'm sorry. But for Shaw to be able to get on that at the end of that cross and finish with his right foot. But overall, that was a great build-up play, and something that on our previous podcast I was highlighting is that offensively, what are Manchester United looking to do? What are their plaudits here? Defensively, great. They continue to do that in this game here. But offensively, what are you looking to do? And the build-up from the second goal, yes, poor from Bournemouth. They're looking to high press, looking to be able to potentially get back in the game towards the end of the first half, but kind of it was a knife through butter with the Manchester United passing around. So you got to give them credit there on the offensive sense. What I want to be able to, I know we will talk about Manchester United, but I want to quickly spend a little bit of time on Bournemouth because now this is 3 losses in a row. 4 out of the last 5 games have come up with L's. Or beginning of the season, they look like more of a threat. They look like a team where, you know what, hey, we may be able to see getting something out of them. But they haven't picked up. They've only picked up 1 win since October 15th. It's not been great. Is this the type of team where kind of you anticipate to see for the rest of the season, where they're probably going to drop down into that relegation battle?
I think teams like Everton, I think teams like West Ham are almost excited that Bournemouth, who obviously started off quite decent, is beginning to show I would say their true side and their quality. So yeah, I think teams like West Ham and Everton are kind of licking their lips in terms of this is a team we can jump. We're not far off. It's a point difference or 2 points difference tops, and they're all at 18. They're all at 18 games played, so it's very close. So I think Bournemouth have everything to worry about, and teams like West Ham should, almost. I don't want to say a sense of relief that teams aren't far off from you, but they should be better and almost take this as a blessing and sort of try to turn it around as quickly as possible. And it's shocking that they haven't already. So yeah, they definitely need to take advantage of this.
Absolutely, because Bournemouth they've conceded 39 goals thus far this season, and that's more than Nottingham Forest, which is kind of scary to think about. Because when I envision the Nottingham Forest team, their goal is to kind of concede more goals than they've had signings, and they're trying to sign a lot of people still here. So to concede more goals than them is quite a badness. So I definitely agree. Where West Ham and Everton, Wolves, they're like, you know what, hey, this should be the second team that's probably going to go down with Southampton from what we see towards the beginning of this year. So at least we can hope drag someone else into the pit of darkness, into the depth of relegation battle. But on the other side, Manchester United, great performance again. And I know we're not talking about this today. In the FA Cup, another win again.
Another win.
Do you think, momentum-wise, what do you think has changed for this team? Because there was a lot of talk, there was a lot of doom and gloom just 2 games into the Premier League season where it seemed like the world was falling. What do you think if you had to pinpoint kind of the biggest thing that has changed for the club since then, what screams out to you?
Discipline. And accountability, I think is the biggest thing. And again, we hate to keep dragging his name back into this mix. The whole negative energy of the whole saga of Cristiano Ronaldo, the constant media on Jadon Sancho, the negativity on even Bruno or Anthony if they're not playing well. I think once you win a couple of games and Ten Hag setting the example for these guys, for other players rather, disciplining Ronaldo, disciplining Rashford. Doesn't matter who you are. If you make a mistake and it's punishable, I will punish you. And for them to understand that, and for players to understand that, and just even the back end of the coaching when obviously creating these special programs for each player. Taking Jaden Sancho aside, pulling him away from the team, not necessarily because you're not good enough. We know what you can provide. We just need you to mentally regain focus, and I don't necessarily see him being away from the team as a bad thing, as he's just sort of helping him regain his focus. So yeah, no, the accountability thing. And just the overall discipline of the club is back to where it's getting to where it once was. Obviously, baby steps, and we'll take any win. But yeah, no, it's definitely changed a lot over the past 2 months, I'd say.
Absolutely. I definitely think that, as kind of we talked about at the beginning of the season, the sky was falling, and now it seems like we're back on Earth, and it's great. I think for me, the biggest difference, and I'll say his name, Marcus Rashford. He's having a hell of a season. 13 goals
fantastic.
thus far this season. In terms of goals per 90, it's 0.64. Every 140 minutes, he's banging in on a goal. 47 shots. He's, I think, second in the team in assists as well with 5, so he's doing everything. And since coming back to World Cup, he's played 5 games, scored 4 goals, 2 assists. There's nothing more you can ask for. So I think this is, back to the form of his life. I know that there's been kind of up and down seasons. He came hot onto the scene. There's been a lot of criticism there, but there's been great moments, and I think this might be trajectory towards where a lot of people envision his career at the beginning. But he's a name I wanted to bring up. But what are your thoughts?
Exactly my point. Sort of living up to his name. I was, I was a part of the group where I was saying, Rashford's not playing to his level. If he wants to complain and be sold, by all means, let's make some money off him. But I'll never apologize for my words about that. Simply because he's finally living. Why should I apologize for someone who's finally living up to his name? These were the hopes and aspirations for yourself and of the club. So yeah, no, he's playing great, and I'm happy to see it. But yeah, no, for anyone expecting me to say I was wrong about Rashford, was I wrong? Yeah. Will I apologize? No. So hey, I'm happy. I'm happy he's doing well.
It's a win-win situation for you.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. To see him play well is it's heartwarming, and to him, and for him to play well with Martial, and to see the boys, smiling again. You don't get really, you don't really get a lot of smiles from Martial. So when you do, it's definitely a nice scene. So yeah, no, things are rolling and things are going well for Man U, and I couldn't be happier.
Absolutely. So, well, I know we just talked about something that you're going to be very, very happy about, and a team that you support. Now, to the other side of the coin, a team you hate and something you're going to be very sad about. Of course, Spurs won 4-0 against Crystal Palace. We anticipated maybe an interesting game. Maybe if Crystal Palace lined up in a very, counter-attacking system, they could be, exploit the weaknesses that the Spurs team has shown to have. However, once that second half whistle hit, a new Spurs team came out. I think Kane finished off with, I think it was 2 goals. Son, I think, had a goal, and then and then Doherty had another goal, if I remember correctly. So 4 goals, 3 different goal scorers. Phenomenal display in that second half from Spurs. I guess, and then probably the first time in a long time they didn't concede the first goal because they didn't end up conceding at all. So it's a win for them. But what are your thoughts about this performance from your much hated Spurs?
Look, it was obviously a tale of two halves. I think early on, Crystal Palace definitely had the pressure on Spurs. I think up until like 35 minutes, they had 3-4 chances where they could have put one by Hugo Lloris, and it was disappointing that I didn't see one go in because they were great chances. But yeah, I guess when you don't score against them, they do have the quality to play good football, and I guess they finally woke up in the second half because they obviously got away with it again. Obviously not conceding, but yeah, they definitely got away with one again. To not concede is very fortunate, but then they came out and played great football. And I would say, like obviously with Harry Kane leading the charge, what else is new? That guy can score and flat out score, and it's no secret. So it's and also apart from Harry Kane, it was nice to see Brian Gill, have a different type of game after being criticized so heavily after their last match. A lot of fans saying, that was the last game he'd play in a Spurs shirt. Harsh coming from a Spurs fan. Not too many people really wanting to play for Spurs. You take what you can get, but no, he played quite decent, and it's nice after getting such a harsh like a harsh review from your fans. So credits to him. But yeah, definitely a tale of two halves.
Completely. I think one moment stands out to me and was much memed about on the internet. I don't know if you saw it, but it is how we anticipated and what we talked about potentially is that if you have attacking front three of Zaha, Eze, and Olise, you could do some damage on the counter. But Patrick Vieira instead put someone in front of them, Jordan Ayew, and he had an opportunity to lay it off to Olise for pretty much a tap in, but instead decided to take a shot and it was blocked. Poor decision on his behalf. And I don't know if you've seen the photo, Gio, but Zaha is yelling at him in his face right after the opportunity. And Olise, who is the man open, is also yelling at it's Jordan Ayew, if I remember. Yeah, Jordan Ayew. So that moment for me kind of encapsulates why, yes, you want your striker to be greedy, but at the same time, there is a better decision. And that could have, as you said, changed the outcome of this game in terms of capitalizing on their better first half. But if we're going to give Spurs the credit, because we do have to, Kane, I think this now puts him at 15 goals through the Premier League season thus far. We're not even halfway yet, adding another 2 goals. If Haaland wasn't here and Kane was on this pace already, do you think that the media would be talking about his season individually, not as a team, individually, very, very differently? Because 15 goals, less than halfway, he's on pace for above 30 as well. Do you think there would be a different type of conversation around him?
Yeah, there would be a drastically different conversation. I think there would be a lot more, rumor talks even. Obviously them being in fifth place, not exactly in the Champions League position, not the type of European football they'd want to be playing next season. But yeah, no, it definitely would spark those rumors again to the Real Madrids or whatever big name club wants to sign a striker.
Manchester United.
Manchester United. But yeah, but that only goes to show the quality of Holland at this point. Not to not to downplay his 15 goals, but the quality of Holland and the pace of Holland scoring just goes to show how strong it is right now in the Premier League. But yeah, Kane deserves the credit as he's carrying this team, and he as he has been carrying this team, I should say, on his back for years now. So yeah, no, Kane is a different breed. He shouldn't be on this club.
I guess the last thing I want to at least mention before we wrap up, and the other, I guess, his running mate, the man that really has been carrying the club offensively and was tied for the Golden Boot last year, Son, got on the score sheet, and I think this was his first goal while he was in the starting lineup for Spurs this year in the Premier League, because he's come off the bench a couple times and scored some goals, but it's never since he hasn't started and scored until this game. Do you think this is potentially for him where he can get past that? This is because, as they say, when you score, goals come in bunches, right? Where maybe he can get hot from after being the 4th goal scorer in this game, even though it wasn't vital in the game, maybe vital for a season and potentially Tottenham season if they have a chance to kind of get back into a top 4 position.
I wouldn't say so. I would say don't bank on it. He came on and scored a hat trick for against Leicester, and look where it's gotten him. So I don't think Spurs fans should, expect a whole bunch of goals. Obviously, a better run of form maybe. But I think again, I could argue that you'd want to see a better run of form from him, as opposed to just scoring goals. You can score goals and still lose games. If you can contribute in other ways, assisting Harry Kane, play, being almost an assist, a distributor, so that Kane can score more goals, then yeah, so Kane can do less work and not have to drop as deep. Then yeah, there's other aspects of the game where you can make a bigger influence. But yeah, I think that's what Spurs fans are hoping for, at least.
Definitely, if he can get back into a good run of form, it adds another goal threat for them, especially with their Charleston now, Kulusevski being often injured thus far this season. You need someone else that's going to be kind of a goal threat, and someone else that can. Kane will probably score, but you need someone else. You can't win every game 1-0 or hope Kane scores a couple goals to be able to get through, especially with a source of a defense as Spurs do have. But I guess this wraps up our talk on these two games here. We're going to take another quick break and come back with more continued conversation around the Premier League midday match week 19. So please stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, and we're continuing our coverage of the midweek matches. I know I just fucked that up a second ago, but I got it right that time, right, Gio? Of the Premier League. We're going to just quickly go over, now maybe not go as deep as we did on the previous games, but quick fire kind of thoughts on a very interesting game of Leeds 2, West Ham 2, Gio. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of positives that you can pull from this game. Is that you were able to squeeze out a point. You'd be disappointed because you let a late one in. But in general, for them to score.
Sorry, from whose perspective? My apologies. Which team?
West Ham, because I think they let a 2-1 lead go.
Correct. Yes. Sorry, my apologies.
So yeah. So I mean, they would be disappointed there, as their defense still kind of looks like Swiss cheese at times. A lot of holes. Especially in transition, it's tough. But for Paqueta to put one in the back of the net, and then your recent signing of Scamacca to put one into the net, I think is great for their confidence. You were able to squeeze out a point after falling down behind first again. Just shows the camaraderie that they do want to do well, but there's things that need to be fixed, and it seems like they're working on it. But I think it was a decent performance. Again, could have been 3 points, but at that point you kind of know what you need to sort of sharpen up on, and just get ready for the next match. I think those two guys scoring and gaining that extra bit of confidence is going to be huge for them in the second half of the season.
Absolutely, on a team that they were behind initially, 1-0 down to Gnotto. I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but. Still coming back to be able to fight back. I know they did, as you said, let it slip. But coming off games, I think previous to this, they had lost 5 Premier League games in a row. So at least pulling up a point to step 1 of 2, really, to kind of stop the bleeding where, hey, we're not just going to be right across the kind of the fixture list in terms of the record. We're going to be able to fight back. We're going to be able to do something. This is at least a step forward. I think key for them is the next matchup actually against Wolves, because that's another contender to be in the relegation battle. And if they are able to pull off a win, moving them up to 18 points, that theoretically, if all things standing still, they're up in towards the 5th, 13th, 14th, 15th position, which is not, of course, where they want to be, but much better than where they are right now. So I think this, like I said, is part 1 of 2. They just need to keep the momentum going of, of course, not losing games, but now we got the monkey off our back. We got a tie. We got a point. Let's go out and get a win. We had large positives from this game. Can we carry those forward? So I think that will be very, very interesting for them. Any other thoughts from this game before we move on to kind of a game that I wanted to pick out?
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, mine for both, I guess, positives and negatives. Positives, actually going to start off with a negative. Boys, we were right. Frank Lampard is in trouble because they look like absolute trash. They lost 4-1 to Brighton. I think Matoma, Ray was putting did our document for us to be able to talk about certain aspects of the game. He's highlighted Matoma's a baller. McAllister can ball out for the rest of the season. Brighton are very, very fun. But the biggest takeaway, of course, like we said at the beginning of the season, is that Lampard's in trouble, and you gotta love to see it. I'd love being right, just 6 months late. If the prediction was the first manager get fired in 2023, we might be on one.
We're on to something.
we were just ahead of the game. No one knew.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, years, whatever, man. Hey, we just got the year wrong.
But on the other side of the coin, Brighton, a great result for them. Of course, they had just come off losing 4-2 to Arsenal, which they did have a decent performance overall in some aspects of the game, but because they did try to fight back and get into it, but they were able to continue against a bigger team, against another team where they do need a win, because this game was sandwiched in between Arsenal, Liverpool. So this, even if it doesn't go well against Liverpool, which again they could pull up a good performance there, it's quite possible, but it puts them in a position where kind of they've stemmed the tide. They don't have to potentially be on the hook for losing 3 games in a row. So if they were to lose, of course, this game and then to Liverpool. So I think this was very key for them, as well as they're recovering, hopefully soon, McAllister from the World Cup to get back into that team sheet to kind of have just as much of an impact as he did for Argentina. So, but to toss it to you, Gio, what are your thoughts, I guess, maybe about this game or about how you feel about Everton or Brighton after this result?
I think obviously the day we're recording, they also lost to Man U in the cup match. So
Everton losing to Man U.
Yeah. So yeah, hot water, Lampard, go hand in hand because he has a lot of it. He's in a lot of it. So I think Everton should be disappointed, but I also think Brighton, have almost, of course, losing a manager mid-season is going to be tough, but they dropped a couple of points here and there, but you can see the general quality that's still there. And some can argue it wasn't just Graham Potter, it was, the cohesiveness of the squad and Matoma who is on a scoring streak at this point. Very hot striker. I think Brighton can. Where are they sitting right now exactly on the table?
They're 8th right now after this result. Yeah,
I would love to see them, jump to even 6, 7. I can very well see that happening because they're on the same amount of games as Liverpool. And to be quite frank with you, Liverpool, after losing that game 3-1 to Brentford, it was things don't look great for them either. So I think Brighton should be very happy where they are because they can make a huge jump within 1 or 2 games and they'll be in almost that European football talk.
Absolutely. And like I said, their next fixture is against Liverpool, who they tied 3-3 in a very exciting game earlier on the season. So who knows what can happen. Hopefully Ray's not hoping that Matoma and McAllister and all of them have that much of an impact on that game, I guess, right, Gio? But what I want to ask you, and you brought it up perfectly for me, Gio, because I think this takes care of the Premier League results. But we talked about your boy, Kepa, earlier in the podcast. And I want to compare and contrast his goalkeeping from today's goal for Everton against Manchester United with De Gea. Which one would you argue is a more of an egregious goalkeeper error between the two?
Definitely the David De Gea one. You're already hugging the post. I don't understand how that can squeeze through your legs. You hug the post for a reason, okay? And that's not the reason. Hey, close your legs, whatever. Hug the post a little tighter. That should not happen. Or drop to the ground and grab it because it wasn't a hard pass by any means of the word. It should be easily handled. Boot the ball, whatever. But you hug the post and you let it squeeze by. That's on you. You shouldn't be paid this week. That's bad. If it turned out 1-0 Everton, this guy should not be paid this week. I'm sorry to break it to you.
I would actually disagree with you. I think Kepa's is a little bit more egregious because I could see what De Gea is trying to do. I don't understand what Kepa's trying to do. De Gea, arguably, probably the best goalkeeper of all time, stopping shots with his feet. So, you know what? Yeah. It's a mistake. All the things that he's done, I get that. But at least he's trying to make an attempt to stop the ball. Whereas literally Kepa spins like a cyclone and just does not impact the play whatsoever. It would have been funny is that, and I was listening to a podcast, they were like, maybe do you think Kepa got a shout from his defender to leave it? That's the only defensible thing, which if my defender's telling me to leave it for them as the goalkeeper, it should be the other way around. You know what I mean? It's just none of it makes any sense on that Kepa thing. So I thought that was hilarious. But I do And I know that was kind of a more of a joke thing I wanted to be able to talk with you, but we're roughly around halfway through the season, Gio. And preseason, we did a little bit of a game where we talked about what our predictions are for the overall Premier League season. And one question I want to ask you is, if you were to finish the season today, and would you think there's anybody that, other than Erling Haaland, that would win the Premier League Player of the Season? Is it him versus everybody else, or do you think there's a contender that, if the Premier League finished today, do you think that there's someone that potentially that you would give your vote for instead of him, if that makes sense?
You know, I don't want to toot your horn.
Okay.
But I think based on consistency and impact, and you can see the difference that he makes when he's on the pitch, and the difference in quality when he's off the pitch, is a guy who goes by the name of Martin Odegaard, who is playing football at a very high level, and he is a young captain who is leading a top flight team, being on top of the table. I think he deserves a lot of credit.
So you would give PFA Player of the Year to Odegaard if the season ended today?
I think I wouldn't give it to him, but
Okay.
I think those two would be in an argument,
Okay.
and it can swing either way depending on
Ooh.
if it ended today and Arsenal were to win the championship,
Exactly.
win the Prem.
Yeah.
And I think absolutely he's in the conversation.
Gotcha. So you think it's like if the season ends today, it's a 2-horse race between the two. People would vote Odegaard's had a great season, best player for the best team theoretically.
Yes.
And
yes.
Or people would be like, Haaland's probably the greatest player this year. Let's give it to him. That's
Yeah.
more of your thought process. Okay.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
My follow-up question to you is actually, if you had this as an option, where it's a betting situation, which we don't bet and we don't condone betting. Everyone keep the money in the savings account.
Yes.
Like keep that low interest GIC. Do what you need to do, even though interest rates are up. But that's neither here nor there. So if you had the option, gambling wise, of
Yeah.
those two players, if you had to
Right.
take, if you had between the choice between Odegaard and Haaland together or the field, what I mean by is that if anybody else wins it, you win the money there, or you think there's only between those two that could win PFA Player of the Year. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I'm taking Haaland and Odegaard.
Ooh.
There's if Man City is gonna close the gap and then go create the gap, Haaland's gonna be surpassing whatever goal record for a single season is, and that's the truth of the matter. I don't care if you don't think so. That's the truth. It will happen. So if that were the scenario, which again could be very much so the scenario, then Haaland's going to have to be the workhorse in terms of putting goals in the back of the net. So I think he's going to surpass a lot of records, and shock a lot of people. I mean, at this point, is it really a shock if you were to do it? He's doing it at such a high rate. So, and then when you twist the story about Arsenal, if they fend off Man City, take one of two games and then draw a next game, against Man City, which again possible, then you really have to consider that. Just again, like I said, the impact. You see the difference when he's on the pitch, and you see the difference when he's off the pitch. And that pass to Martinelli. Not a lot of players are making that pass this year in the Prem. There's him. There's KDB.
Bruno.
Maybe Bruno. Maybe Bruno on a good day when he's not crying.
Yes.
So that's only a handful of players, and I think out of respect, you have to put him in that conversation.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I don't know. I might take the field because I really feel like it could be KDB that wins it, depending on if he has a better second half of the season, or Saka maybe overtakes Odegaard as kind of the main man. It'd be interesting to see. I like where you're coming from. It's a spicy take. It's beautiful. But for me, I think I would take the field just because of that factor, where I could see KDB for Man City. I could see, or if Arsenal win it, which I hope they do, but if it doesn't turn out to be that way, if it does turn out to be that way, then I think there's a lot of different players from Arsenal that, depending on how the second half of the season goes, that could theoretically kind of snipe that from Haaland. But for me, Holland's too juicy at the same time. So
he is.
It's very interesting where the betting odds will go for the rest of the season for that.
Yeah, no, he's just a different animal, man. Like you try, and like we've seen early season where he's shoved players off ball, and it's not even a foul at that point because you're just too little for him. He's a beast. He's a beast.
Absolutely, it reminds me of Shaq first entering the NBA, and people just didn't know what to do. This is just are we the same species? I don't understand. And
no.
You try to foul him, but he's just continuing to play that the ref doesn't call it as a foul, and they don't know what to do, and that's just how it is. Yeah. But yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I think if you were to test his blood, it's actually horse blood. It's just not fair.
I think that's a perfect place to be able to end our podcast. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe on our social medias. That's at @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, remember, get in touch with us over email, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you'll actually be hearing from us is next week Monday, when we talk about a little bit of a surprise. You'll see. You have to pay attention to our social media accounts when it ends up happening there. But it'll be a very interesting evergreen podcast. But I want to say thank you from me, and Gio, thank you for you.
Hey, glory, baby.
We're not doing that here, but we will see you next time. Peace out.